Welcome you all for the English class today. We'll be seeing a poem. So let's get started. What do you think about spring season? What comes to your mind when you think it's spring season? It's a very cool season with chill breeze and flowers bloom, and all these things make us remember the spring season, right? Yeah, everyone likes spring. So today we'll be seeing a poem related to spring but not actually explaining about the season. Okay, here we have a poet, William Wordsworth, who contrasts the characteristics of mankind and the Mother Nature and laments how humans have failed to live up to such a model of nature. Okay, the name of the poem is Lines Written in Early Spring by William Wordsworth. Let's get started about the poet first. Okay. The poet William Wordsworth was born on 7th April 1770 and he died on 23rd April 1850. He was known as a nature poet because all his poems are some way or the other related to nature, and he is a person who admires and glorifies nature. So most of his poems are related to nature, and this is also one of it. Okay. William Wordsworth belongs to Romantic period. He and his friend St. Coleridge, who was also a poet of the Romantic period, they both compiled a volume of lyrical ballads which consisted of all the poems written by William Wordsworth himself and also his friend St. Coleridge. Lyrical Ballads is a famous volume of book among the people of Romantic period because it was written in simple language used by the people of that age in their daily speech. And the principal object which made the lyrical ballads to be very famous is that both of them, St. Coleridge and William Wordsworth, they both proposed to choose incidents and situations from common life. The incidents narrated by the poet or scenery depicted in the poem was really common among the people. It was the actual image of the daily life of those people, and it was also written in simple language. So people preferred to read their poems and they were able to understand the poems easily. So that's the uniqueness of the lyrical ballads which made it more popular among the people of Romantic period. St. Coleridge and others believed that there were natural laws, that is the imagination, at least of a good creative artist. The romantic artist should follow through artistic inspiration if left alone. So that originality was essential for a romantic artist. The concept of artist who was able to produce his own original work through this process of creation from imagination is the key to Romanticism. Okay, there are other poets or romantic artists of Romantic era. They are William Blake, P.B. Shelley, and John Keats. All of them are well-known poets. Poems like William Blake's A Poison Tree, which is an imaginative description about the emotions of the narrator who was angry on his friend and enemy, and John Keats' Ode to a Nightingale, in which the poet speaks with the nightingale, which portrays as immortal, which he portrayed as immortal, and he portrays the human beings as something that is mortal. Okay, and many of their poems are really very popular and prescribed for textbooks also. Let's see about the poem. The poem was written by William Wordsworth when he was on a walk near the village of Alford. He was able to see the mountains and beautiful scenery of nature. It was so pleasing, and he was admired by that. So he started writing this poem, and it was written in April 1798. The poem is written in quatrains. Quatrains means four-line or four-verse poem, and the rhyme scheme followed in all the stanza of the poem is A B A B. And Wordsworth followed a new theory of poetry in all his poems. The theme of the poem. When it comes to the theme of William Wordsworth's poem, all of his themes are somehow or the other related to nature. This poem is also one of it, and he says that the nature and mankind are linked. Here in this poem, he has contrasted the characteristics of the nature and also the characteristics of the mankind, and he contrasted them in their own modes of being, like nature is kind, and it is well appreciated in his poem, and mankind is known for its failure. It has failed to live up to the expectation of the nature and has failed to live in accordance and in harmony with the nature. The mood of the poem is that the melancholy sets in almost immediately because of the striking contrast between nature and humanity. The poet or the speaker seems to feel that it is his responsibility to ponder the mistakes of humanity. So that's the theme of the poem here. Let's move on to the context. Context. The context is the background in which the poem was written. The early period of Romantic era was a time of war, with the French Revolution followed by the Napoleonic Wars until 1815. These wars, along with the political and social turmoil that went along with them, served as a background for Romanticism. The poem was written in 1798. At that time, there were wars and battles taking place in that period when people exploited each other and also exploited nature. And because of war, there were poverty, violence, betrayal among the people. So all these contributes to the mindset of the poet who wrote this poem in such a way. Romantic period. The poem was written in romantic the poem was written in romantic period, that is between 1790 to 1850. This is a notable period in English literature, and there is love and admiration for nature. All the literary works written in this period are the expression of sharpened sensibilities and heightened imaginative feeling. To express these feelings, it was considered the content of art that had to come from the imagination of the artist. Okay. Romanticism. Romanticism is an artistic and literary movement in England. It is the expression of the inner spirit of man. Romanticism was characterized by its emphasis on emotion and individualism, as well as the glorification of all the past and nature. It expresses poetry with deep emotions and aesthetic experience of nature. It was embodied most strongly in the fields like visual arts, music, literature, but had major impact on education, social sciences, and the natural sciences. It had a significant and complex effect on politics, with romantic thinkers influencing liberalism, radicalism, conservatism, and nationalism. Okay, that is neoclassicism. Neoclassicism is followed by Romanticism. Neoclassicism, in which the word neo means new and classical meaning something that is very classic, something that does not get fade away with time. Okay, all the Roman and Greek literature were considered to be the classics, and the neoclassical literature is characterized by order, accuracy, and structure. But the writers of Romantic era refused to accept the neoclassical literature because it tries to imitate the style of Romans and Greeks. So the neoclassical period ended in 1798 when the lyrical ballads, romantic lyrical ballads, was published by William Wordsworth. For William Wordsworth, poetry should begin as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, which the poet then recollects in should begin in tranquility, evoking a new emotion the poet can then mold into art. That's the background of the poem. Let's see the overview. This poem appreciates beautiful nature, it glorifies it, and it gives all the minute details which the poet experienced while writing this poem. He has beautifully penned down his emotions in this poem. It's a failure of mankind. The poet feels sad for mankind in this poem. He also lists out some bad impressions about mankind that was actually present among the people of that age. They are poverty, exploitation of nature, violence, and betrayal, because of which the poet feels sad about. Lines written in early spring by William Wordsworth. Let's read the poem once and then try to figure out what the poet is trying to tell us. Okay? Read along with me. I heard thousand blended notes, while in a groove I sat reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran, and much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. Through primrose tufts in the green bower, the periwinkle trailed its threads, and this my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. The birds around me hopped and played, their thoughts I cannot measure, but the least motion which they made, it seemed a thrill of pleasure. The budding twigs spread out their fan to catch the breezy air, and I must think, do all I can, that there was pleasure there. If this belief from heaven be sent, if such be nature's holy plan, have I not reason to lament what man has made of man? Okay, that's a beautiful poem. Let's see the explanation through stanza by stanza. I heard a thousand blended notes, while in a grove I sat reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind. What the poet is trying to tell to us. I heard a thousand blended notes. Okay, the word blended notes means the music, the amazing sweet voice of the birds, the sweet song sung by the birds when he was in a group. While in a group, I sat reclined. Grove is a place where group of trees are planted close together like a garden. It was surrounded by green trees. Naturally, it was such a greenish atmosphere there. Reclined, meaning to say leaning back on something in a relaxed position. Here, the poet is leaning on the tree and he is relaxing. That is when he heard the thousand blended notes, that is the beautiful song of the birds. In that sweet mood, when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind, when he found solace, when he was enjoying nature's beauty, in that pleasant mood, he started getting sad thoughts in his mind. Why? Let's see. The same nature which brings him pleasure also brings sad thoughts to him. Wordsworth describes a bittersweet moment here. The speaker reclines in a beautiful grove surrounded by the blended notes of nature, and yet, even as he enjoys the scene, it inspires a melancholy mood, and the speaker begins to have dark thoughts about humanity. Okay, so that's what he has explained in the first stanza. When he was leaning and reclining in a relaxed position in a grove, he heard the sweet song of the birds, which gave him pleasure. At the same time, it also brought sad thoughts to his mind. Let's find the reason for his sadness in the upcoming stanza. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran, and much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran. The poet says that her fair works, here her refers to nature, nature's fair works connect his soul that runs through him. He says that nature has done a very fair job, and through her works, human soul is linked with it. Her is personified to nature. This is personification in which non-living matter is personified as a living being. Okay, the connection with nature in this poem is very, very apparent. Wordsworth strengthens the bond by placing the speaker in the middle of nature, all alone except for the plants and animals around him. He personifies nature, giving her the ability to make decisions, to link herself to his soul, and to experience pleasure. Nature in this poem is doing everything right. It is man who has failed by rejecting nature. And much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. The poet says that his soul is connected with nature, which is feeling sad when his heart thinks about the treatment of a man to his fellow beings. He feels regret and sad for what is happening to mankind because people were betraying, exploiting, and killing each other, and also neglecting nature, which makes his heart to feel painful. Nature has connected itself to the speaker's soul, leading him to sadly consider what man has made of man. Even as he does, however, he takes in the beautiful scene that surrounds him. Okay? The poet presents natural world of birds, animals, and flowers as one that is calm, beautiful, and divine. He portrays mankind as enemies of nature who destroy nature as well as their own fellow beings. They have not contributed anything for the goodness of nature, but still, nature gives them everything. Man has failed to appreciate his own fellow being. Instead, they are destroying each other. So here, the poet says, what man has made of man. That's it for the today's class. Let's see the remaining stanza in the next class.